strobes either. The question is, to the first two people who spoke, what vision do you have of Australia for your children and your children's children? That's the question. And for the more mature panel members, could you please, maybe you had some expectations when you know, I know Andrea, you've lived here and you're born here, but what expectations, say, did your parents have, or what did you have when you came to Australia? Has that been met? And if not, what other vision did you have, or what would you like to see? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe the younger generation first.
Thanks for the question, Shiva. It's a really interesting one. For those of you who didn't hear, it was what's my vision for the future and for my children's future.
And what blended mixture?
And what blended mixture would I like? Again, I can't think of a fruit or a vegetable, but maybe a fruit salad might sum it up well. The future, for me, is one where, so the last couple of days we've had this thing on the news about people booing Adam Goods playing AFL. So a future where that doesn't happen because he's Indigenous. A future where we don't turn around people who come to our country as asylum seekers who are vulnerable in our protection because we're full or we don't want them here. And that's a really challenging place to go. And I think the only way we will ever get there is by slowly embracing cultural diversity so that we can all recognise that it's a benefit to our country. It's an economic benefit to our country, it's a social fabric and cultural benefit to our country. So it's small steps. So the more diversity we have, say, in our parliament, the more diversity we have in our media, we slowly start to see differences in our public conversation. We slowly start to see differences in our policy views and direction for the future. And that only comes, it takes a while, but I think that's the direction we should head in. And that involves political parties, it involves universities, schools, educational institutions, all taking that, and media organisations, taking that step to start embracing cultural diversity to showcase how it can be a benefit for Australia.
So I used to live in Sydney, and me and my family visit Sydney like very often. And although there are lots of people from different countries, different backgrounds living in Sydney, I think that they're living in clusters. Like there's not very much mingling with different people of different backgrounds and things like that. And I think that this creates tension between people. And also, I think sometimes when you see things in the media that like continuously are pushing one storyline, I think it like makes this problem even worse. So I was watching a documentary a few years ago about asylum seekers. It was called Go Back to Where You Came From, and they did a Q&A afterwards, and one of the girls, I think her name was Raquel or Rochelle or something. Yeah, she was from Western Sydney, and she had very strong anti-immigrant views before the program started. After the program had ended and she had met people from different places, she was asked, you know, how did you change your mindset? And it was basically, her answer was that just by meeting people of different backgrounds, it helped to change the stereotypes. And I think we can say as much as we like, you know, this is wrong, we shouldn't do that, but at the end of the day, I think actions speak louder than words, and we should all just like extend a hand of friendship to everyone to help people understand that, you know, we're the same and just human beings. Yeah, that's how I'd like to see Australia.
Okay, this is the second question now. What expectation you have and have they been met by the majority of what might be?
Sure, thank you. I'm going to speak a little bit on behalf of my parents, if I haven't done that already this evening. They're not going to defend themselves, it's a bit awful, isn't it? Look, my parents and their families had expectations for them when they came to Australia, and they were pretty straightforward. They were also pretty large, really. They got to come here to Australia and live those expectations. They were able to choose an education, and they got one, which is better than their parents had. They chose their marriage. They chose to build a family around their values and not the values that were imposed upon them from the past or from the community around them, but they got to choose what to build. They had the freedom to work and to work at what they wanted to work at. They had the freedom to vote, the freedom to speak out, the freedom to participate in the community. Those are all the things that my parents got by immigrating to Australia that they may not have had to the same degree in the countries that they came from. So that brings it to my generation, and you have to ask yourself, well, where to then, really? I mean, look at all the things that my parents had. So for me, reflecting on it in the couple of minutes I've just had, I have the freedom to question, what are my values? How should I participate in my community? What does my vote mean? So in other words, I have the choices. I have to now think beyond simply making a choice. I have to think, how do I continue to give my choice meaning? Because if these things become taken for granted and they fail to have meaning, then they can be taken away. And that, I think, would be the greatest loss to Australian society. So it's my responsibility to continue to give those things meaning, even when they're given to me on a platter. So thanks, Australia, for giving those things to me on a platter. I better now continue to put in the hard work to give them meaning.
What a clever question. You know, it's going to come not as a surprise to you, because each one on this table will have a different view of what they want Australia to be. The young lady sitting next to me is not yet 20. I am in the last quarter of my life, if I'm going to live 100. There's going to be definitely a different change, expectation as to what we'd like to see the world to be there. Until I was a teenager or more, until I migrated to Australia at the age of 45, the world was moving at a slower pace than it has been since 1982. Each one of us in this room will bear testimony to that. What would we like to see? Well, now, as in my introduction, I did say that our life resolved, my wife and my life revolved around our grandchildren. I wish we had our grandchildren we had before we had our children, actually. But I know that it's a biological impossibility. But what would we like them to inherit from us? What would we like to have them inherit? What we would like them to inherit from us is certainly not the few world wars that we have seen. That is something that we regretfully have seen in our lifetimes. The world has changed since then. We are trying very, very hard to see that we don't have a world war. But how can we avert that? There are many people living in peril at this moment around the world. Some in greater danger than others. How can we alleviate that situation? These are the questions which we can at least tell our children for the future to try and work on, but leave them a legacy of well-being to work on. And how can we do that? Most of the people in this room in front of me today are in the second half of their life. I'm making a generalization, but I'm assuming that. Are we going to leave them the difficulties of the bad environment that we are working towards? Are we going to leave them wars? How are we going to see that they are going to have a happier life than what we had? Well, let me tell you this. It's going to depend on them thinking for themselves how they can improve their life. Because our great-grandfathers did exactly that. They left us a legacy which made us think when we migrated to another country, we did not have anything with us. But we made our lives by living with the people with whom we were living. We learned to improve our lot by working hard, by respecting others, by assimilating. But the biggest thing is by accepting other people's thoughts, their ways of life, their faith, their understanding of this world. If we can leave this inheritance with our children and our grandchildren, I think we would have done a bit of a good job. Thank you very much.
Rolf, what are the hopes or expectations?
I guess when we talk about expectations, having been born in Australia and raised in Australia, I do feel that a lot of my expectations have been met. I live in a secure country, I live in a safe country, I live in a country where if I get sick, I know I will be looked after. I guess my hopes and my expectations is that we build on that we build a country where we are all friends with each other, where we reach out, we accept each other, and that we're not afraid of each other, and we're not afraid of the outside. And that through that, I guess, bravery, that translates into compassion. Not just for those here, not just for those that are the most vulnerable in our society, those that perhaps don't have as much wealth, that we have a greater sharing of the resources in this country, but that also that we recognise that Australia, in and of itself, its population-wise, is an amazing country for the amount of wealth that we have. And recognising that, being able to share that with other countries, with other worlds, to perhaps translate that into a more humane policy in how we treat people, in particular those that are seeking refugee status. And also try to be more proactive about that, not just dealing with it at an end point, where we have people trying to get here by whatever means, but by actually trying to support countries themselves already and acting in more of that global manner that we discussed before, especially in the ways of things like environment. And also talking about conflict and how we can help support and intervene with that. So that's my expectation.
Thanks to all of you.